and introduce our players. In the bottom left, we do have our blue and teal players. We have Albino and Snoxtar. And in the top right, the orange and red players. Just a Sloth, also known as Nina and Theory.
I gotta say, I absolutely adore that the team colors are consistent. As someone who comes from a game where you can just pick whatever color you want, it's so good. You have blue and teal on one team and then red and orange on the other. Scores are a little janky over here because, the stream UI wasn't really designed for 2v2s yet. In general, not even for team games. But one thing to highlight here is that the players are very close to each other. So this is not one of those setups in RTSs where the two teammates are far apart from each other. And that means that it's a little bit more difficult to isolate one player and do early damage to them.
Yeah, it's fun to see how the similarities line up and the differences just in how they want to approach this type of setting. Because another thing that I think is interesting to talk about is we do still have the creep camps on the map, and it looks like they are all uniquely doubled up here, and both players already trying to jump on top of the different health camps and start fighting for some of those resources. But there's going to be two sets of those resources as well for these teams to fight over.
Yeah, indeed. It kind of feels like, you're not just looking at a standard 1v1 map and you slap two players onto it. It's more along the lines of basically doubling everything that you have. Just looking at the starting Therium mines for the teams even, you have essentially 4 Therium deposits for 2 players.
Ooh, getting pick off on that Hexen there does allow a little bit of aggression here. And it looks like Theory is going to get onto the Hexen of Snoxtar as well. A ton of veterancies here to make those dogs just a little bit stronger. And already we are seeing a lot of tit for tat here. These players are not wasting any time to get engagements going.
Yeah, dog v dog over here. Most of the Infernal players got pretty badly beaten up, and a lot of veterancy on these dogs. I think Vorelium Claw's timing is going to be crucial here. If you have that ahead of your opponent, you're going to beat up the opponent's Gaunts, and you're going to have that bonus damage against light, which applies against enemy dogs as well.
Well, and I think there's going to be an interesting value to putting buildings for the Infernals on the map. I've seen, actually, Apoptosis is a member of Aftermath Gaming, and he has proposed kind of a good idea and a theory all around, like, hey, we need to figure out the best way to siege up different buildings around the map just to hold some different points. Theory using that Shroudstone to really lock down that Luminite tower. That is going to provide some really crucial resources here early on that maybe in like a StarCraft 2, that is not a concept that we think of very often. So being able to adapt in that way is going to be really important for players in Stormgate.
Nina did get Vorelium Claws. Now, I don't know if we have it for Albino just yet, but indeed, as our observers are highlighting to us, plus 16 bonus damage against light, it's huge. It's there for both players. So it looks like we have essentially a near identical opening for both of these players. Looks like we do have an expansion towards the natural here from both of the Infernal players. But it looks like when it comes to the Vanguards, Albino is just one base, whereas Nina is already expanding to the second.
It's going to come down to the type of aggression that Nina is going to slip into with getting this natural, really having to spend a whole lot of resources walling off this main because she's rather exposed right now, but both players having to deal with a lot of aggression. Albino on the right side putting on some pressure. Snoxtar on the left. Nina really doesn't have a whole lot here. Theory is being forced to have to kind of do all of the work on this side right now, and Albino's going to try and get the surround on this wall. If this wall falls, it's going to be all bad for Nina.
It is, and the wall has fallen. Dog numbers are looking so much better over here for Albino. And in general, you just see a lot more blue than you see red or orange on this screen right now.
Oh, this is a madhouse rush here in the natural of Nina. If Nina can hang on to her command post, it would be a fine engagement, but there's so many fiends going down right now. Hexen's trying to draw a good amount of fire. Tons of units getting veterancy as the scouts are trying to stabilize here, and it looks like Albino and Snoxtar are just going to shove on into the main base.
This must be it. there's just nothing standing there for Theory and Nina, down to 20 supply each. All the workers will be gone. I feel like that's it.
Oh, this is one of those where if Nina can stabilize and get her economy up and running, it would be great, but instead it's going to be GG, and just like that, in a huge way where maps can make or break the different types of strategies that you have. But here we are in our second map. We're going to Dust Devil for map number 2. The red and orange team on the right, Theory and Nina, the teal and blue players, Albino and Snoxtar on the left.
One thing I'm noticing here is that the minimap is a little janky if you take a look, because it doesn't seem to show your back Luminite mines. It feels like it just cropped off the edge, but nevertheless, one distinct difference between this map and the one that we've seen before is the lower amount of resources that you start with. Not as much Ethereum in your starting bases. Also have to venture a lot further away for Luminite. And this is a little less symmetrical. This map is a little less symmetrical than the previous one. So when it comes to the player at the bottom, for instance, they have a pretty decent and close natural to work with. Not so much for the player spawning to the north.
Yeah, that's very true. I do feel compelled to make one observation. I feel like if I lean way back and I look at the mini-map and I squint kind of a little bit, I kind of can see like the twisted tree line from League of Legends. That's just a thing that I noticed, and it's like, oh, it just took me back to my college days.
Well, a quick expansion coming in here from both sides here. Once again, just kind of working towards those creep camps. And just again, to go back to those map features, this map doesn't have a lot of resource towers. In fact, there seems to be just one Therium tower at the very bottom. The rest of those camps are all... Oh, that's bad. That's very bad. Hexen getting isolated by the dogs.
Oh, yeah, and the speed camp is no joke right now. Their leap forward, you do have to kind of respect the creep, but not only that, you have your opponent who's equally trying to harass you and get the creep resources at the same time. To your point about the creep camps being in smaller supply, that could potentially lead us in a different direction. We talked about map design kind of directing the style of play that you have in a team game map like this. If there's less resources on the map to try and contest, you would benefit from being able to get that second base out a little bit quicker. So we're going to have to see if that influences our players at all.
Yeah, that's a great point you bring up. Indeed, if you don't have that passive resource, there is more merit in building up a next base to get those extra resources instead of doubling down on map control and trying to leverage that and turn it into resources from the resource towers.
Yeah, so we looks like Theory and Nina actually being the aggressors here this time around, trying to jockey on the left-hand side of the map, trying to force an engagement here at the speed tower, going to try and grab the creep, and now this tower is up for grabs. Who's going to be able to get it? Nina takes her scouts around the high side here. The Brutes are just kind of dancing with each other. They don't care what's happening around them. They're just marching to their own beat.
A lot of veterans and the dogs of Albino over here, and that could easily be the game changer. And it looks like now Theory and Nina are just being isolated from one another. All these brutes just surrounded here. Dogs just went to raid, but it looks like they just decide to turn around. They don't dive the main.
Being able to get control of that speed tower as kind of a reward at the end of that fight is so impactful. And you talked about the two armies getting split up. That having that speed really kind of drives that knife in, as both players are going to have to retreat near Theory and Nina having to get back to their own camps. And once again, Albino able to kind of isolate Nina away from her teammate to not be able to provide that additional assistance, and all of a sudden this speed tower now becomes a very important point to try and hold.
That's a beautiful jump from Nina on all these gaunts out there. Veteran dogs with the speed buff being able to take out most of them. And you feel like momentum is shifting in the favor of Theory and Nina here. Most of the army from Snoxtar and Albino are being cleaned up. Beautiful surrounds on the dogs as well.
There's just so much happening on the screen, and you have to watch for a lot of different nuance points here to make sure that everything clicks. All of our players right now on a one-base economy. This is just all production all the time here. I think one of the interesting timings is going to be who's going to blink first? Who's going to say, well, I want to try and get a natural and maybe expand this game forward? But it seems as if the left side of the map, Albino, trying to put down a sentry post to really lock in their base, and the same is kind of happening on both sides. It's just a raucous back and forth in the center of the map.
Therium Tower yet to be claimed though, but that previous fight just helps Theory and Nina secure this one for themselves. To your point though, I don't think anybody is gonna try to go for a natural expansion right now. If you're Theory and Nina, you just want a great fight. You might just want to go pedal to the metal, double down, and finish the game. Whereas if you're Albino and Snoxtar, you know that you're outnumbered. So even if you expand towards that natural, you might just die.
Oh, getting that Therium camp was enough to draw the fight here. A huge amount of infest goes down onto those scouts, so those scouts could instantly turn into fiends at any moment, and we could start to see those fiend numbers slowly starting to grow, but it seems as if Theory and Nina are able to overwhelm their opponents. They might be able to bring this to a game number 3. If they continue the push, they're going to grab that speed tower, getting that valuable resource and being able to position against their opponents. And Lidicor, this is starting to look a little bit rough for the boys in blue.
Indeed, I feel like it's an understatement to say it's looking rough. I love the infest coming from the Gaunts, but they are a light unit with just 80 base HP and something like 20 in white health. They just die in a blink of an eye to the dogs, and I think that's the difference between the two teams right now. When you look at Theory, he's going all in on the brutes and fiends sometimes, but not a single Gaunt out there. Whereas for Snoxtar, he's pretty heavy on the Gaunts, but those, if they ever get hit by the dogs, they're just gone.
All right. Well, I asked who was going to blink first, and it looks like it was Nina. Nina feels really confident that she's secured her position in this game. She is going to pick up that to expand on the bottom side of the map, but Snoxtar also going to do the same thing. So both of these teams are going to try and step out and maybe expand this game a little bit, but I worry about that for Albino and Snoxtar. They are still kind of in a rough position here, down a little bit on supply. Not by a whole lot, though. It's pretty even, but you said it yourself. Those scouts have an insane amount of damage against Gaunts with those Beryllium Claws.
And Snoxtar is moving to that natural to the north. We talked about this. It's so far away, it might be tough to defend. Army now getting isolated here. Looks like Nina is going to think twice about this, though, because Albino made a pivot into Lancers. But if this position ever gets scouted here by Theory or Nina, this is a prime target. It's just so far away. And when you have dogs with the speed buff, you can just go for a very quick run by, and it's going to be difficult for Snoxtar to respond with this slow-moving army he has. Same goes for Albino. In general, now you have a very slow-moving composition for Snoxtar and Albino.
Well, it's interesting here. Theory actually getting a Twilight Spire on his side of the map. I'm not sure if that's going to be for Shadow Flyers or if that's going to be for like a later game tech. I mean, there are some of those tier 3 upgrades that could be beneficial in these low economy, high tech fights, but kind of an interesting thing that we're going to have to keep an eye on there. Both teams, just trying to scout each other out. We do have Albino finally taking that second base as well. It looks like it's just the Theory that has not made the expansion point just yet. So choosing to get some tech. Yeah, that is going to be for an Elder Shrine. You don't think that we're going to try and squeeze a dragon out on one base. That sounds crazy.
It really sounds crazy, but while this is happening, it looks like Theory also decided to just build up his Gaunt numbers as well. Nina is now making a pivot to the north here. Not just dogs anymore, you also have quite a lot of Exos, and given that on the opposing side you do have Lancers, you do have quite a lot of Brutes, Exos could work really well. And I mean, good luck with the Fiends against all these dogs.
Nina has been so cost efficient with all of these scouts in this game. It's remarkable the difference in position. I mean, really not a different path walked, but so much better engagement, so much better micro and control. Very, very well done. Nina's going to try and use this advantage and jump on top of this army that's a little bit exposed. We have a Shroud Stone that does get summoned here. That's going to get picked off almost immediately. These Exos are going to have to be kited. All of those scouts are infested, and some of them are getting very low on health. Meanwhile, Theory on the bottom side of the map trying to engage against the Buzzsaw Cannon, trying to knock down the position of the blue Vanguard player, and it is just a lot of chaos on the map.
I feel like Nina might have jumped the gun over here. She went in alone without the support of Theory. Theory tried to just isolate that natural on the other side of the map and try to do damage while no one was there, but so far he wasn't really able to. And you feel like the end result is that Nina got pushed back, quite some casualties, Army getting beaten up, and now once again it's Theory who's isolated. And just look at the northern side of the map now for Snoxtar and Albino. They are looking to dive the base of Nina and Theory.
I mean, you almost have to punish that. If Nina loses all of these scouts, it's a great opportunity for Albino and Snoxtar to capitalize on it. Now, Nina does have that health tower. She is going to try and stay there as long as possible. And this army does kind of get whittled out here. The Exo's still very, very strong in the situation. She stutter steps forward. She picks off all of the gaunts, and suddenly this army falls apart. And Nina comes out the victor in this engagement.
And on the other side, look at this. Aggression is still going on here from Theory. He's been aggressing that natural. An expensive Magmadon is going to go down over here. In fact, he's just chilling out there, not even stomping all these Gaunts. And we talked about that natural being all the way up north. It's so isolated. It's so defenseless. And Snoxtar and Albino know that too. It is GG. And we are going to be taken into game number 3.
Our two teams in the bottom left, the boys in blue, it's Albino and Snoxtar. And in the top right, it is Theory and Nina.
We had a really fun game number 2 here, and just looking at the map once again to start with, I feel like the features that we've discussed in game number 2 kind of stand for this map as well. You don't have a lot of these resource camps to be snowbally. You only have 2 Therium towers to work with. And while you do have a safer natural than what we've seen in the previous games, the distance between your main and natural is still pretty substantial. So I feel like in this map, we're going to see a little bit more expansion towards those naturals, but definitely not towards third bases. The third bases are just so far away from where you're probably concentrating your forces.
Well, and I like this on this map. We didn't talk about it on the previous map, but it's a unified base, right? Mm-hmm. So both players have access to help defend each other. You are going to kind of step on each other's toes a little bit, especially as you start dropping buildings in key locations. You're going to have to kind of discuss on the fly, like where are we going to wall? Where do we want to create choke points? Where do we want to defend? Those types of things are all heavy considerations when all of a sudden you have to share your bedroom with a whole other person.
And it's a big thing, especially when you look at the starting Therium. The Infernals, they use quite a lot of Therium in early mid-game, and then you, of course, have the Vanguard as well, and you have some critical upgrades that do require you to gather some Therium at the beginning. At the end of the day, you don't want to get into that scenario where you just, as you said, step on each other's toes and maybe just take too much and you don't leave sufficient amounts for your teammates. Those are considerations to make when you spawn right next to one another.
Now, our eagle-eyed viewers are going to notice some key differences in the resource camps around the area. You saw on the left and right-hand side of the map, usually where the Luminite Tower resides, that's actually an energy camp now. And the Siege camp, currently not present on this version of the 2v2 map. So there are differences, despite the fact the map looks and feels very reminiscent of the 1v1, that we will want to make sure to keep an eye on, because those types of interactions are going to have major implications on gameplay.
So far, neither of the teams tried to contest the camps on the opposing side of the map. By now, in the previous games, we've seen teams moving forward and just trying to take a fight while the opponents are busy taking over a camp. And while we're looking at this Therium camp being captured, I think this is something that we haven't yet had the chance to talk about. When you're playing 2v2s, you have a lot more forces going on early on. So it means that you can capture these towers a lot quicker than you can in 1v1s.
Yeah, the timings are incredibly important and different. You can't lean into your 1v1 game sense of, oh, okay, about this time I want to be getting to here. You're going to be behind your opponents so much more. You really want to be more aggressive. You're rewarded as a result. You get those resource camps, you get some positioning, but we are going to have a bit of an engagement here as both Albino and Snoxtar do show up to contest this vision tower. They like it. They like this part of the map, and they want to make sure that they can keep control of it for now.
Yeah, both vision towers belong to Albino and Snoxtar, so they have a lot of intel over here, but Nina is looking to flank here. I love the use of this little stealth force, just trying to loop around, try to intercept the Hexen, and it's going to be a trade between the dogs over here, but you feel like Albino and Snoxtar are being trapped over here. That is a beautiful pincer.
Yeah, it was a great bait by both of the players on the right side of the map. They were able to calculate a good surround there, but through just sheer force, Albino able to get these scouts and keep them around. Snoxtar is going to get a whole bunch of fiends here, and all of a sudden, the shoe's on the other foot.
Oh, boys. Albino seems to have claws already. I don't know if Nina has those, but these fights are just snowballing way too quickly in the favor of Albino, and Snoxtar dog count is just looking so much better, and I feel like we might just see a repeat of game number 1 here.
Oh, yeah, this is a very quick pushback. Nina does have Beryllium Claws, but it's just not going to be enough. She's lost too many of her scouts, and now Snoxtar in a very punishing position. The Luminite mine just isn't happening, so all the workers go to mine Therium instead.
Oh, no! What are you going to do with all that Therium?
Oh, that is not a resource that you want to get your hands on at this point in the game. Theory going to try and hold down the position just a little bit longer with this Shroud Stone, but as one barracks falls, Nina's production is going to completely plummet. She's not going to be able to get the reinforcements that she needs. Not to mention, she still hasn't mined any Luminite for the last 45 seconds.
This must be it here. Supply is just looking abysmal for Theory and Nina. Workers getting caught in the crossfire as well. Even the Shroud Stone is being taken out by dogs. And, you know, even if you hold this somehow, some way, your eco has suffered way too much damage. The next wave should be able to finish you off. But look at all these Gaunts. They're still alive. They're still infecting units. And they're just picking off all these workers. Nina is down to just 2 supply, 1 supply. That must be it.